Please note that the views expressed on this program are those of the individuals who speak them, and not necessarily those of Portsmouth Community Radio, its Board of Trustees, members, volunteers, or underwriters. Good evening and welcome to Spirit Radio. I am your host, Willie Hassell. Along with my co-host, Lynn Nickerson, we will take you on a journey into the unknown where the paranormal becomes the normal. A journey to a world cloaked in darkness where reality becomes a thin veil. So sit back, relax, and join us as we venture into the shadows, the darkness, the unknown, and back. And good evening once again, and welcome to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience. And Lynn is just jumping into her seat. She was having a little chat there with our guest on the phone. And, okay, we're all set now. So anyway, this is Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience. I am your host, Willie Hassell, your gatekeeper to the dark side, your guide to the realm of the unknown, the unseen, the unthinkable. And yes, she is the lovely, she is the mystical, she is the mysterious, she is Lynn Nickerson.
Good evening, Willie. How are you doing?
I am doing
there.
I am doing very well. Everybody else wants to hear you too, I know. Yeah. So it is 2015.
Yes, 2015, and it's cold outside.
It is cold outside.
And it's not going to get any better for a little while.
No, it's not.
No.
So,
I bet our guest is very envious of us.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he'd much rather be here than in sunny Southern California, where he is.
Well, I bet you've got his intro right there all ready.
I bet I do.
Okay, good. Let's have it.
Okay. Tonight's guest is Merrell Fankhauser. Merrell was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and moved to Southern California at the age of 13. Merrell has had a long and diverse career in music, becoming one of the innovators of surf music and psychedelic rock. He has gained international status in rock music field with over 250 songs published and released. Merrell became very interested in the long-lost continent of Mu, and did much study of the subject, and named his band Mu, and moved to Hawaii. Merrell also became interested in the strange underwater sounds recorded off the coast of Malibu, California, where an underwater base has been discovered. Incorporating these sounds into his latest recordings, he is here tonight to discuss secret underwater bases, the lost continent of Mu, and some of his personal paranormal experiences. And we are happy to welcome him to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience. Merrell Fankhauser. Good evening, Merrell.
Good evening, Willie. You're pretty far away. I can barely hear your voice. If there's anything there to turn you up in my ear, that would help.
Turn it up just a little bit, and hopefully that'll help.
Does that help?
It helped a little, but you guys are still both kind of weak.
Okay, well, I just am weak. I'm old.
Okay, he just adjusted the volume again, Merrell. Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear your voice better now.
Okay. Well, nobody can ever hear me, but that's okay.
Hey, no,
nobody wants to hear me anyway.
I can hear you. It's magic.
Well, welcome to Spirit Radio. It's so nice to have you on. We were just reading your book, Calling from a Star, the Merrell Fankhauser story. Wow, what a roller coaster ride you had.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey is all I can say, from growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, and then moving out here and becoming a teenager here and getting involved in surf music and, then all of my adventures after that.
You have, the heights of creativity and the depths of adversity in your life. I think I would have quit music a long time ago had I been treated the way you were treated over the years.
You know, several guys, going back to 1962 when my band, The Impacts, and I were discovered by Delphi Records in a little beach town here, Pismo Beach. And our album became a hit, and of course, we didn't know anything about contracts or copyrights or anything, and we signed it all away. And I didn't get the copyrights back or anything from the album till 1994 when surf music came back real big because of the movie Pulp Fiction. And by then, I was almost a music attorney, and I knew contracts to read. And so I went back to the record label and everybody that I could find, and I got the copyrights back and all of our names. But you're exactly right. The other guitar player, Martin Brown, he threw in the towel for years and was so disgusted because as teenagers, you know, we got so ripped off. And this is the story of a lot of the early surf bands and the black R&B bands out here on the West Coast also. Same thing happened, but, you know, things are going good for me now, and gosh, over
well, that's good.
Some albums later, I'm still going.
How many again, Merrell? How many albums? Over 50?
Well, a Dutch musicologist just did a complete discography on me.
Okay.
And he found things in other countries like Poland and Brazil and Greece that I didn't even know about.
And that's not right either.
Counting the compilations, it's over 55 albums.
Incredible.
And then other singles and things. It's over 100 recordings out there. I knew about the stuff in Europe, but I never knew about Poland or Brazil.
Aren't you supposed to be getting some kind of licensing, or them getting licensing on that, and you getting royalties from that?
Yeah, but you know,
you can't pursue it, can you?
The countries over there, you know, Italy and a lot of places, they just bootleg stuff and copy it off of another disc and made it easier when CDs became available because, you know, they could copy high quality. But one of my 60s albums called Fapper Dockley, that's a big collector's item, a sealed one, still goes for $1,000.
Fapper Dockley, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a name.
Had my band, The Exiles, and part of Captain Beefheart's band and some people that played in Frank Zappa's band on that album. And years later, it became this big collector's item. Well, it was bootlegged in England, and what they did, they just took a record and made a master off of that, but you could hear all the pops and crackles, you know, when they did that.
That's so unfair to you as an artist. Well, tell me, you moved to Hawaii. That was quite an adventure.
It sure was. And, you know, I had moved to Los Angeles in 1968 and got a deal with Uni Records, and they put out our HMS Bounty album that was a good seller, and we had a couple of songs that got on the national charts. And then that band disbanded, and around 1969, my old Exiles bandmate, who had been playing with Captain Beefheart, he decided to quit playing with the Captain and join me.
Jeff Cotton?
Yeah, and we formed the band Moo. And the way that came about, I was cleaning up a log bin in this house we had rented up in the canyon in the suburb of Los Angeles, Woodland Hills and Topanga Canyon, and I came across this old 1932 edition of The Lost Continent of Moo by James Churchward. And I went, what is this? And we started reading about that and discovered that there was a lot of odd ruins in the South Pacific that were pre anything that the Tahitians or Hawaiians had built. and they were all pointing towards this lost continent of Mu of Lemuria. So we got a deal with United Artists in first Era Records in Hollywood put out Mu's first album, and then we got a deal around 74 with United Artists to reissue it in Europe. So we made enough money, and a friend of ours had already moved to Maui. He said, "You guys have got to come over here. This place is really
rockin'."
something." So we moved over there, and I immediately started asking all the old Hawaiians about the lost continent of Mu, and I didn't realize there was a taboo about it, and some of them were afraid.
About talking about it?
Yes.
Oh.
And this one old guy who was in his 80s, he said, "I can show you something in the jungle down by the ocean." He said, "I used to play down there when I was a little kid, but my parents said it was strictly taboo, and they would get mad at me if they found out I was playing down there." And they told him that the evil Mu was going to get him if he went down there. So he showed me the trail leading down into this valley, and he wouldn't even go with me.
Really?
Yeah, and I walked down into this trail up to this little waterfall and a pool, and I got chills because I looked at these 3 pillars that were almost Grecian looking, standing on what looked like Mayan Indian stonework. It was this real close-cut stone. And there was a 4th pillar that had broken in the middle and fell off and was partially submerged in this pool with this waterfall trickling over it. I felt like Indiana Jones before the character had been invented. And then I looked over to my left, and I saw the same stone-cut sidewalk going down under this giant how bush. It's like giant hibiscus, and it grows up to 80 feet tall.
Really? And it's a bush?
And it was very dark down there, and I followed this sidewalk, if you will, all the way down to where I could see it went into the ocean and went under the water, and the water was clear enough I could see that, maybe 75 yards out, the lava flow had flowed over it. So I knew that whatever that was, it was older than that lava flow, and that lava flow was over 800 years old. And much later, German television and a geologist came over there, and they filmed it, and I took pictures of it that are in my book, Calling from a Star, the Merrell Fankhauser story. But they said that the carbon dating came back that those pillars were over 10,000 years old.
No kidding.
And it's almost like a hidden secret. The Hawaiians don't want to talk about it, and I've never seen anything on any of the Discovery or History channels about that.
How odd. Why do you suppose that is? Lemuria did exist contemporaneously with Atlantis, but Lemuria went under first. So that would make it probably more than 10,000 years old.
Yeah, they say that they feel that it went down 11,500 years ago. And when the water was in the deserts here, the ocean at one time went clear into where Las Vegas is now, and they know this is a fact. And then when the Pacific plates moved and there was volcanic activity out there, the continent of Mu sank, and the water receded from here and went into that hole that was made out there. And the way the legends read, that people like James Churchward had gone down into the Yucatan and read things on some of the pyramid walls, and other explorers like La Pignon, a Dutch explorer, saw the same thing. And they said that these people of Mu came to South America and helped the Indians there with their pyramid and stonework knowledge.
That makes sense. And what were the stones made of? Any idea, Merrell, were they granite, do you suppose?
No, it looks like, to me, I would have to say it is a volcanic basalt.
Oh, it was dark.
However they cut these things, that's what gets me, because they weren't natural. Some geologists try to say, oh, that's just the way it cools.
Yeah, right.
It gets wet. It cools into these shapes. But these pillars are standing in a semicircle all by themselves, and this sidewalk that goes down under the bushes and into the ocean, I mean, and a lava flow goes over the top of it. It's too uniform and it's too big to me, and other geologists that, are open-minded have said the same thing.
That's quite obviously a man-made structure.
Something man-made.
Was it dark basalt? It was dark stone?
Yeah, it was a dark, but not real dark. I've seen, lava that's black. This was more of a grayish color.
Well, in connection to that, did this have anything to do with the Mahuni or Mahoons, the little people they talk about or don't want to talk about?
That's interesting that you bring that up, because when I would talk to some of the Hawaiians, there were these water ducts that were made up in the jungle in tributaries that was watering, their whatever they were growing there, their gardens and everything. And the stonework was so old, and I could tell it wasn't Hawaiian, because the Hawaiians, they weren't really that much into stonework. They just took volcanic boulders and stacked them up for rock walls and houses, and then, put a pole and thatched roof on it. They all said the Menahunis did that. So, that there is a lot of people that believe that the Menahunis were part of the Mu people. And from what Churchward's book said, there was Caucasian-looking Mu people, there were people that looked more negroid, and there was also a red-haired race.
What about a dark-skinned race? Because the Aztecs and Mayans were on the darker side, weren't they?
Yeah, there was a dark-skinned race because there was a negroid race.
Okay. Oh, my gosh.
But that's not all I found. It goes on, because we were playing music there, and we were one of the first bands to play there after Jimi Hendrix shot the cult film Rainbow Bridge in 1971. And we met a lot of the people that were in that movie with him. And the movie didn't get released till 72, after Jimmy had passed. But all of these people that we talked to, many of them knew about the legend of Mu, and they were all ufologists. And they even said that a UFO came over one day and hovered for 10 minutes or something and scared the whole crew and the people in the town of Lahaina while they were filming. And, that...
Was that unusual activity? Do you think it was connected to the fact that they were filming there?
I don't know if the activity had anything to do with it, or... Because then, as I would read older books, and like there's one written by a Hawaiian called Children of the Rainbow that talks about the pre-Hawaiian religions and the people of Mu, and they talk about these lights that they would see coming out of the 10,000-foot crater and diving into the ocean, and coming out of the ocean and going back up in the crater. And so there was a lot of people that were seeing things, and this was, as far as I could see, it was documented clear into the 70s, 1970s. They were seeing things. And one time I was hiking through Haleakala Crater, which in Hawaiian means House of the Sun, and I looked out into the 800 or 900-year-old lava flow, and I saw what looked like a pyramid sticking up. And I thought, wow, do you guys see that? And they said, yeah. And we were staying in one of the cabins that you could then rent back in the 70s. And they were too tired. And we had breakfast. We went to sleep that night and had breakfast, and I couldn't stop thinking about this thing, and I had my camera with me. And so I started hiking towards this pyramid. And the weird thing is when the sun went down at a certain angle because of the shadows, you couldn't see it. It was masked, and it was hidden. And I had just enough light to where I could see the tip of it out in the middle of this dried lava field. Well, it looked like, it was just maybe a block away, but it turned out to be over a mile.
Oh.
And by the time I got there, my jeans were all cut up, and my shoes my boots were cut because the lava stone is so sharp. And I got to it, and I just could not believe it. There it was. I think I tried to measure it with my own body crawling up the side, and I estimated it to be about 38 feet tall, and it was a smooth-sided pyramid. And I ended up getting a picture of it.
I believe you sent me a copy of that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the weird thing, Willie, is when I tried to climb up on the side of the pyramid, I got such vertigo and got so dizzy, I felt like I was going to black out. And I crawled down off of the thing and sat there for a while, and then I felt okay. And it was very dangerous what I did, because I had to jump these deep chasms that looked like bottomless pits. And I mean, if I fell in one of those, nobody would be out there to help me.
And we wouldn't be talking to you now.
Huh?
I said, and we wouldn't be talking to you now.
No, you wouldn't be talking to me now. And I made it back to the cabin and told the guys, and then I was clutching onto this camera for the whole rest of the trip, and, wrapped it up with towels and put it in my backpack. I didn't want anything to happen to this because I knew nobody would believe me.
Well, even the Forest Service didn't know about it, did they?
Well, nobody would ever say, but guess what? After I gave it to the local newspaper and they put it in the paper, a ranger came knocking on my door.
That's spooky.
And, they said that they could give me a ticket or something for leaving the trail because it's marked everywhere.
Don't leave the trail?
Not to leave that trail.
Oh, that could have something to do with it.
And there's a part inside the crater there that when you walk around this one corner on Sliding Sands Trail, if you have a compass, it'll spin in your hand like it's got an electric motor in it.
Yep.
There's no north or south or east or west.
That probably had something to do with your dizziness and your vertigo.
Well, maybe, but later on I talked to this old physics professor that taught at a private school there, and he said, oh, yeah, that's a RAK-42, an ore that the UFOs use to refuel their electromagnetic engines. And coming from an 82-year-old guy, that really got me.
That kind of blew your mind.
Yeah.
Well, who do you suppose, Merrell, then, are the Hawaiians as opposed to, well, if they're not descendants of the people of Mu? You seem to mention that there are really two distinct cultures there.
The Hawaiians came from Tahiti, and they say that when they came there, on one side of the island, which I also explored, it's a side of the island you can't drive around because there's a lava field there. They said there was a white race, living on the, it would be the, the south side of the island. And I went out there with a film crew in the early 80s because I had gone part way out, and there's like a gravel road with rock walls along the side, and you'll go for, maybe a mile or so, and then there'll be a mountain of lava over the road. And you have to climb over that, and then you look down the other side, and you see the road continuing. And if you look out to your left, the opposite of looking towards the ocean, you can see out in this lava field more of that same kind of stonework that's partially covered up. And it looks like, steps to doorways, partial walls. And about 7 miles out, up on this red cinder hill, there's a very large Hawaiian building. It's about as big as a small drugstore or something. It's huge. And it's definitely Hawaiian because I can tell the stonework of Hawaiian. I've studied that. And it had these polished rock and stone that they use for octopus lures in the wall as a sort of a sacred thing. Well, over in the right-hand corner of this building, there was a hole in the floor, and you could see where people had been lighting any kind of branch or anything they can find. And mind you now, there is no water on that side of the island. There's no vegetation because of this huge field of lava. And it gets very hot out there. And there's some rickety ladder that somebody made out of wood. I don't know if they carried the wood out there or where they got it. The funny thing was there was some Romex electrical cable tied around this pile of rocks also going down there for something to hold on to. So I'd heard about this from an old surfer friend of mine that had been there, and he called it Lost City Hall. So I couldn't get the guy with the camera to carry it that far. He exhausted a few miles back, and it was just me and one other person. And we went down in there. I didn't even have my still camera at that point. All I had was a canteen and a box of matches. And what I found down there looked almost like an Egyptian tomb. It was that same kind of cut stone rock that I'd found on the opposite side of the island. And in each one of the corners were these pillars again, only these had like some kind of animal paws carved at the bottom. I would say they look like lion paws. And the other thing I didn't say, the pillars that were over in the jungle, I could get on the top of them and look down at them, and they looked like individual strands of hex head rocks that were somehow locked together or fused with no mortar or anything holding them together. I couldn't see the tops of these because they went right up to the ceiling, but it looked identical. And the interesting thing, in the Bishop Museum in Honolulu, they have a stone axe head in one of their cases. And it says right on the stone axe head where it was found, so many miles from La Perouse Bay, which is where we were, and it was believed to be a Viking stone axe.
So the Vikings are there too. They got around.
Yeah. So that might have something to do with either it was
who the white
Vikings
people were
that the Hawaiians saw, or it was a race before then.
Well, a couple of things come to mind. Have you ever heard of Pumapunka from South America?
I have.
Do you suppose that architecture was similar to what you saw? There was no mortar involved. The stones were cut.
Yes, and these stones aren't on that scale. Those things
They're
are
huge. Yeah.
But it looks very much the
same
And
work.
I mean, they've pretty much proven that they can see like saw blade cuts
Right.
in them, and that that they were cut with something. And that was the feeling I got about this stonework, that it wasn't chiseled out, with
Yeah.
kind of a rock chisel or
It's very
something.
precise.
Whoever did this had some kind of sophisticated materials or saws or lasers, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could be.
Yeah.
So there's a big mystery. Well, Merrell, we're at the bottom of the hour, and we're going to take a break. And during this little break, we're going to be playing one of your songs so that the audience can hear some of your music.
Hey.
All right? So we'll be back
Alrighty.
in just a minute with Merrell Fankhauser.
Supernatural Magazine, the UK's newest paranormal magazine, provides support to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience. It is the magazine's goal to bring every aspect of supernatural news and research from around the world under one roof to create a universal platform for all those interested in the supernatural. More information is available at supernaturalmagazine.com. You are listening to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience, on WSCA-LP 106.1 FM in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And we will be right back after this short break. Okay, you are tuned to WSCA 106.1 FM in Portsmouth's West End. And this is Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience. And we will be back to our guest, Merrell Fankhauser, in just a moment. But first, from the community calendar, a winter farmers market takes place on the first and third Saturday of the month from 10 to 2 p.m., now through March 7th, 2015. You can find local meats, milk, maple syrup, honey, veggies, prepared foods, and many more items for sale by local vendors. The market is free to attend and takes place in the 500-square-foot glass greenhouse of Rolling Green Nursery, located at 64 Breakfast Hill Road in Greenland, New Hampshire. Further information can be found online at rollinggreenNursery.com. And Lynn, we have some more guests coming up after this week.
We've got a guest list here. Betty and Bob Luca. This is Betty from the Andreessen Affair, written by Raymond E. Fowler. They're going to be our guests on January 10th. Following that, on January 17th, Janet Lesson is going to be our guest. She has a radio show in Hawaii, somebody that Merrell probably knows. And she has written extensively about the Anunnaki, and she's going to be talking to us about that and some of her personal UFO experiences. The 24th is an unknown show subject at the moment. Moving on to the 31st, we're welcoming Sherry Brake, and she is a UFO investigator from Pennsylvania, is it, Willie?
Sherry Brake, no, she's the paranormal ghost investigator.
From Ohio?
Ohio.
Okay, from Ohio then.
Somewhere around there.
Okay. And then on the 7th of February, we're welcoming Rick Osmond, and he's going to be joining us to speak about giants in the Ohio Valley. And that's our guest list.
Okay, so with that, why don't we go back to our guest on the phone tonight, Merrell Fankhauser. Welcome back, Merrell.
Hi, Merrell.
Good to be back, you guys.
Would you like to tell us what the name of that particular cut is that we just heard?
The song you just played is Signals from Malibu. It's brand new. It's out on a single, getting played on about 90 radio stations
It's
already.
Beautiful.
All right.
Both of those cuts are beautiful.
I made a deal with my UK label, Gonzo Multimedia, to put it out. They're going to put the whole album out. But
have you got all the cuts done?
So much airplay and so many requests, I had to burn some copies of the album myself to get them out to people. And that song is very interesting because Michael Luckman, the author, I don't know if you're familiar
We've heard of him.
with him.
Mm-hmm.
He did a book a number of years ago that he interviewed me for, Alien Rock, the Extraterrestrial Connection. And he called me up and he said, have you heard about this anomaly that they found off the coast of Malibu that's under the water? And I said, no, Michael, I haven't heard of that. And he said that this old World War II radio expert, who that's what he did when he was in the Army. He was pinpointing where the enemy was broadcasting from on different islands and stuff, and he still had that, I guess some technology, and he picked up these signals one night with his ham radio when he was talking to somebody in Australia, and he thought they were very strange and not like anything he ever heard. So there's a naval air base a few more miles up the coast, and he went over there and asked them, said, are you guys doing anything with submarines out there? Or what's going on? They said, no, there's nothing going on. So somehow he got together with Michael Luckman, and he sent Michael these signals. And Michael said, well, we got to send these to Merrell Fankhauser. And they sent them to me, and as soon as I listened to the first tape, I heard that song that you just played. I heard Because I started out in surf music. This was almost like a throwback to me. It was almost like a sci-fi instrumental surf a la 60s James Bond, if you will.
You heard it in your head, Merrell?
Heard the whole thing in my head when I started listening to those signals. And so I called the band over, and I ran in the studio real quick and just put a rough draft of the song down and the guitar part. Started out writing some music so I wouldn't forget it, because I've learned when that burst of inspiration comes through, wherever it comes from,
Record it.
you got to get it down real quick, or you might hear something else, or go to the store and come back
and it's gone.
You can't even remember.
So
they came in and went, wow, this is wild. We sat down in an hour and a half. We recorded that song.
Wow.
My violinist said he had goosebumps the whole time he was playing, and when he walked out the door, he felt like he was floating. And so after that happened, I realized there was about 4 minutes and 12 seconds of signals I hadn't listened to. So I decided to put them on, and I went out in my studio and sat down at the piano, put on the headphones, and I thought, I better push record just in case. I pushed record, and I started hearing these things and started playing with it. And I played through the whole thing, and I swear I did not know what I was playing or what key I was playing.
Oh, my gosh.
It was almost like automatic writing.
You were channeling, yeah.
And when it was done, I listened to it, and I went, what? I mean, I play piano, but I mainly play like electronic keyboard stuff and background organ parts and things. I don't consider myself to be a real piano player. And Sal, the violinist, came over and he said, wow, who played that piano? I said, I did. And he went, yeah, right.
No kidding.
I said, no kidding, Sal. I said, I went into a trance or something. And he said, well, this is very odd. Do you realize you're playing in E minor, which is the same key that those signals are in?
No kidding.
And then I heard it if you listen to this other song, it's Messages to the Dome, from the Dome. You can hear there's two signals in one, and I heard that, and I took it to a friend, an engineer here that teaches at the sound at the local college, and he ran it through an oscilloscope, and he said, you're right, there's two things being broadcast in this. There was this underlying thing that almost sounded like some kind of industrial thing with these high-pitched beeps over the top. And we worked on that, and I heard these other parts again, and cello and violin, and it took us longer to do that one. Probably took us 4 hours one day and 2 more the next. So I sent those out to some radio stations that Michael Luckman knew, and then before I knew it, that song started getting on some classical stations.
Really?
Wow.
And
I can see why.
other stations started requesting it, and I lost count because I made these MP3s, and I think it's on about 90 stations. And then I got so inspired, I went in the studio and we started recording 6 hours a day, and within a month we had a whole album done.
Damn, that's quick.
Yeah. I have messages from the Dome all queued up here, but I think it'd probably be better to we'll play it at the end of the show.
Toward the end of the show,
Okay.
Yeah, when
we've got a
we,
few more questions from
yeah.
Merrell.
Here's another interesting thing that I want to tell you about. I started asking people about this.
The source of the signals?
Some people call it a building because it's very big. It's in about 1,400 feet of water, and it looks like a dome-shaped building with pillars. Now, some geologists say, oh, those are just shadows, and that's the way the fault line
I saw the pictures.
broke there. But the thing that gets me is it's a different color than the sand around it.
And certainly a different morphology than what's around it.
Yeah.
Different
And
shapes.
the other thing, I used to go down there and surf when I was a teenager with my friends. It's about a 3-hour drive from here. I'm up the coast near the town of San Luis Obispo, only I'm in a smaller town near the beach. And one time we got done surfing, and this was in the late 60s, and we were coming out of the water. And these other local surfers said, "Oh, stick around. We're going to build a bonfire and watch the lights go in and out of the ocean." And we went, "What?" They said, "Yeah, there's these weird lights going in and out of the water out there." And we laughed and drove home. We thought they were seeing pelicans fishing. 'Cause that's what they do here. The pelicans dive in the water, and come back out, and I never thought anything about it. Then later on, I heard that people were relating it to UFOs. And so I play in some Indian casinos that are around here on the Central Coast. And the Chumash Indians were the indigenous Native Americans that lived up and down this whole coast. And I was talking to one of the elders one night that was in his 80s, and he knew pretty much all of my history, and he said, "What are you working on now?" And I said, "Well, I'm working on some music that I've wrote concerning this odd anomaly that's off the coast of Malibu under the water." And he gave it some Indian name. He says, "Oh, we've known about that. Our tribe has known about that for hundreds of years." He said, "When the water was lower, we used to stand on it and use it as a pier to fish." And he said, this is the part that really got me. He said, "That's part of the lost civilization of Mu."
So it all connects in the end, huh?
Yeah, that's what I thought, Willie.
Wow.
I went, wait a minute. How is all of this stuff connected? So anyhow, that's where I'm at on it, and I have the complete album, Signals from Malibu, that people can get from me if they go to my website, merrellfankhauser.com, or just email me at merrell@merrellfankhauser.com. And Gonzo is trying to rush release it. Hopefully they'll have it out by the end of February is what they're thinking.
Oh, that's fabulous.
right.
Congratulations, Merrell. That's terrific.
Well, from the two songs that you sent to us, it's we really like them.
Well,
really-
good. I'll have
it's really
to send
cool.
you the whole album.
I wish you would.
Have more of them.
Very ethereal sounding.
You have my address.
Yeah,
You sent me the other two.
yeah. You're in New Hampshire where it's very cold.
It's very cold
Yeah,
here.
it's snowing tonight.
Oh, wow. We have had the coldest weather recorded here on the Central Coast. And, I do a TV show called Tiki Lounge that I've been doing.
You're still doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Still going all up and down the coast in Hawaii, and it was in Ann Arbor and Battle Creek, Michigan for a while. But I have all these tropical plants in an outdoor stage in my big backyard that I've had all kinds of people play at. But I've been running around covering all these plants up for days because we had 29 degrees here the other night.
That's cold for that
Yeah.
area.
It's
Really?
never been that cold here. That's the coldest. And, I lived here since I was a teenager.
That's
Except for
shocking.
when I lived in L.A. and Maui for 15 years, and I've never seen it that cold. So
Very
we're
odd.
all experiencing a cold snap.
It might snow out
It
there
might
pretty
snow
soon,
out
huh?
there, yeah. Snow-covered mountains and beaches.
Yeah.
Well, before we move too far away from this, Merrill, I wanted to ask you, so do you suppose now that base off the coast of Malibu is a UFO base?
Well, that's what they're saying, and Michael Luckman sure wants to believe that, and he's trying to get somebody with a remote submarine, with a video camera, to go down there lower
Yeah.
And they say that there's an opening in the front of it.
It looks like there is a very wide one.
Yeah, and go in there and see what's there.
Is he working with Jimmy Church on that from Fade to Black? Dark Matter Radio?
I don't know. I've just heard that he's talking with various different
to
people
investigate.
that he's trying to figure out a way to, film it from under the water also.
Okay, so do you think then that the ruins that you found on the Hawaiian Islands, do you feel that the really old ruins were part of the same race? Or did it look like, other than the Hawaiians and the Tahitian element, do you think that there were other races besides just one other?
Oh, yeah. Well, if you read James Churchward's book, The Lost Continent of Mu, like I said, he talks about these different, dark skin, brown skin,
Okay.
white people. They were all from this continent of Mu. And, it was way, way before the Hawaiians came from Tahiti, because the Hawaiians were, Tahitian, actually,
Mm-hmm.
and found, the Hawaiian Islands.
All right, then, given that they were, such an ancient civilization, was there any mention in Churchward's book where he felt they came from? Like, was there a particular constellation?
He doesn't get into
He doesn't.
too much, theories that maybe they came from, shall we say, another planet. He doesn't really get into too much of that. He just feels like they were, indigenous peoples from different, parts of the earth that somehow got there and stayed there until the islands erupted.
Yeah.
And the Pacific plate moved, and they all decided to leave.
So was it that Mu went down at the end of the last ice age, or wasn't it previous to that? Because Mu and Atlantis didn't go down together.
No, Mu actually was the motherland, and Atlantis was, an offshoot of Mu. And they say that Mu sank 11,500 years ago.
Okay. That's fascinating. All right, then.
I have an album that I did with a wonderful friend of mine, a music producer and movie producer, William E. McEwen, called Return to Mu.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted for such a long time, to get this knowledge out, if you will, about Mu, because you always see everybody talking about Atlantis, on television, radio, books, but there's hardly ever anything about Mu. And he helped me produce this beautiful album that ended up on about 4 different record companies and was even a hit in Japan, called Return to Mu, and had some of my friends from different bands. Dean Torrance of Jan and Dean sang harmony on it with me. Ed Cassidy of the band Spirit, the drummer, played on it. Jay Ferguson from Spirit and JoJo Gunn played on it. Nicky Hopkins, a piano player that played with the Beatles and the Stones, played on it. John Cipollina from Quicksilver Messenger Service was on it. And Peter Noon of Herman's Hermits sang harmony with me on one song. And I keep thanking Bill McEwen all the time for producing that album with me, because anybody that I would, tell this theory of Mu to, they'd look at me like, okay, you're a hippie from Maui, aren't you? You've been smoking too much Maui Wowie.
But
he got into it so much that he started studying it himself, and he started finding antique books in Santa Barbara that were 150 years old that were talking about this same theory.
There's so many unanswered questions about ancient civilizations.
Yeah.
It just makes you wonder. There's so much buried under the sea, like off the coast of Japan, off the coast of even Easter Island. It makes you wonder. It's hard to put all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
I guess you'll never really know. But we're just about at the end, Merrell, and we're going to try and get your song here, the last song, queued up.
Yeah, we'll go out with that. But first, why don't you give us any websites or
Yeah, Willie,
where we can get buy the album, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can buy the album. I'm selling the ones that I made myself for $18 post-paid, and they can get it from me at actually at my post office box, P.O. Box 1504, Arroyo Grande, 2 words, ARROYOGRANDE, California, 93421, or just email me at Merrell@merrellfankhauser.com. That's MERRELFANKHAUSER, and it's listed at my website also, which is merrellfankhauser.com.
Great.
Okay, excellent.
Wonderful. Merrell, thank you so much for coming on. We've greatly enjoyed this. Very interesting.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And, you know, when you play this music, if you get any feedback from listeners, because I'm finding that this next song, the female hosts of radio shows, and I'm going to be on Janet Lesson's show.
Oh, terrific.
Cool.
On the 25th.
Great.
All right.
The female people that have heard this song, it kind of communicates with them.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm just intrigued by these signals. Oh, and one more real quick thing. I was on Dr. Bob Hieronymus's show, and he played the signals that Billy Meyer recorded of a UFO over his house in 1970 and compared them to the signals in this song, and they were identical.
Really?
So,
Same pattern, same impulse?
huh?
Same pattern and same impulse? Same
Yes.
intensity?
In the same 2 layers and everything. And I thought, well, if that guy faked it in 1970, he had some pretty sophisticated equipment.
Good liar, yeah.
Wasn't invented yet.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Well,
right.
no, we thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes,
We've
thank you,
enjoyed having
Merrell.
you on.
All right.
And,
Best of luck to you.
Perhaps we
Thank
can
you.
perhaps we can do this again sometime, and we're really looking forward to hearing the rest of the album.
Yeah, I'll send it to you, and then maybe sometime we can talk again.
Okay, that would be
bet.
great. That would be great.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Merrell.
Thank you, Merrell.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Have a good night. Okay, that is Spirit Radio, the paranormal experience for another week.
All right.
And hopefully messages from the dome is coming up here. Yeah, I can hear it starting up in the background there.
All right. Well, then we're going to say good night, and thanks to everyone for listening, and here you go. Merrell Fankhauser.